Okay, let's see what happens here. We're back. Let's see if this sounds good. Let me just check my let's put it there and let's see what happens. No static so far. Sounds good. Okay. I think we lost everybody. I think we lost everybody though. We got 4 people on. That's why I didn't want to unplug the mic because I thought if I unplug it and plug it back in, it's not going to work. And it didn't work. And there was no place inside to change the microphone. But I think I figured out what the problem was. I had to open my settings and I had to turn down the volume on my microphone because for some reason my screencast doesn't pick up a low volume. I gotta raise the volume. So I lowered the volume. It sounds like the sound is better. All right. Let's get back to our analysis. Let me see if I've gone through all my notes. We talked about a premium to expertise. I think AI does increase the value of human judgment. In its current form right now, LLMs, LRMs, these are almost all the tools, whether it be audio, video, all of these. They're really great pattern matchers. I haven't seen any evidence that they go beyond pattern matching. And being that they are pattern matchers, that's why it's important to give them context, because when you give them context in your prompt, they know what patterns to look for or what patterns to pay attention for. The other thing that I think is going to be more important going forward in a world where output is increasingly becoming artificial. I don't know how many times I see stuff on YouTube. There's this little video. I can't help but click on it where it's a wolf fighting a tiger, and you think, what? And you look at it, you go, well, that's AI. And then there's another one where you got a whole bunch of guys fighting a gorilla, and I think, no way. Well, it's AI, and it's like, okay, there's so much of this AI crap out there. I don't know what's real anymore. Like, am I looking at something that really happened, or is it fake? Am I reading something that's real, or is it AI generated? There's even one YouTube feed that I watched. It's a woman sitting in a beanbag chair, and then it's a guy sitting on a couch, and they're having a conversation like a podcast. But I recognize the voices as being from Notebook LM. So I mean, you can take PDFs, you can throw them into Notebook LM, you can generate a podcast, then you can generate some video to match the speaking of it, and you could do it all AI generated. And all I'm getting is is a recap and a summary of the input sources, but I'm not getting anybody's real evaluation or analysis of a situation. I couldn't care less about that. What the designation will do, what credentials will do now, is signal to the marketplace that they can have trust in whatever they're reading, that it was either evaluated or generated by a real human, because this is only going to increase. There's only going to be more and more fake podcasts, more and more fake videos, all done with AI, all done by taking an existing piece of literature or a story or a book or whatever the case is, and presenting it as if it was the author's own output, but it's not. So credibility and trust, I think, are going to become more important. Reading a report and seeing your name at the bottom, comma CFA, it's like, okay, finally a human that is actually looking at this. I get some real evaluation and analysis on this, as opposed to just somebody who doesn't know anything through some PDFs into an LLM and came out with a report that I don't know if is right or accurate. For the Yeah, we've already talked about the job listings, and I think we're good on that. So I've gotten through most of my notes on this one. All right, let's go to some of the questions. Curious as a way to listen back to the Discord chat yesterday. I didn't record it because I figured, well, I'm doing this one live, and this one gets recorded anyways, right? Audio issues are a nightmare. Sounds better. Good. I know when you're listening to something that just is bad audio. I know, but I heard it with my iPad. Um, if you ever have this problem, for those that are listening, if you do have this problem, sometimes what you can do is go into control panel, your own control panel for your computer, and turn down the volume in control panel, and then you won't pick up anything. What skills do you recommend we do after level one? Is financial modeling and valuation still relevant skill to learn? You should know the language of it. Like you should at least understand, well, how does a financial model come together, so that you can then prompt a model the correct way, because you do understand. Or when it gives you the output, and it will give it 12 months, 18 months. When I did this on Discord, I said, I guarantee you there's a model out there that already is working on doing financial modeling and nothing but financial modeling. And somebody posted a link and said, yeah, this model is. So in about 12 months, 18 months, all these Excel skills. You see some of these people whose hands just fly over the keyboard. They can expand this column, they can format this, they can do that. And really, that's obsolete. That skill will be obsolete. I don't know that I would waste any time becoming a pro at Excel. I would be familiar with Excel so I can be a good guide to the model for what I wanted to do. But I wouldn't at this point waste my time learning Excel. I would learn a basic three-statement financial model for no other reason than to see how it comes together, so that I can understand how to tell the model what to do. And CFA, they have a practical skills module which goes through financial modeling, a three-statement model, um, with some manufactured data, which is okay if you're just getting the language of financial modeling down. You don't need real world complexity. The manufactured data is just as good. In my module, I use Costco. So you build an actual financial model from Costco's 10Ks, which gives you the analysis part of it and the financial modeling part of it. I don't know that I would spend a lot of time, again, learning Excel skills. I would spend a lot more time learning how to model different line items from different companies. That's what I would spend time on. What's your view of the price action of TLT today? Can't find any article with something concrete on why long end sold today. It's the path of, basically, if you want to put it in blunt terms, it's the path of least resistance is down. So you have a lot of momentum driven flows in the market these days. Momentum has been, for the last 2 months, momentum has been the biggest winning factor by far. If you watch the market outlook, I showed you since Liberation Day how momentum has just absolutely outperformed. Um, so when you train a group of people and a larger market in general that momentum works, then momentum is the trade that everyone does. It gets to be a crowded trade until it no longer works. The exit from these crowded trades can be rough. The short positioning in Treasury futures is almost 2 million contracts. The short interest in TLT is 20%. That's retail and institutional now. That's a big position on one side of the trade that, if you're programmed to sell every rally in the bonds and you're programmed to buy every dip, you do it till it no longer works. Even if the fundamentals are changing on you, you still do it till it no longer works. And I think that's what's going on in both those markets right now. What if the means of credentials get undermined by AI tools? Example with students in college. Oh, it is possible to get all the way through a mid-tier university without developing any metacognitive skills. It is more than likely out of lower tiered universities you are graduating without any metacognitive skills, but it is unlikely in upper tier universities that would be the case. Um, and I don't know that in the upper tier universities you'd still have laziness. Students tend to look for the path of least resistance as well, but I don't think that they would have gotten in unless they had a brain that was capable of metacognitive skills. As far as CFA, I doubt you're going to get past level 3 without metacognitive skills. You are not memorizing your way through level 3. Not going to happen because it's not that there's new information or that there isn't new information at level 3. The information at level 3 is just, you're just expected to know a lot of stuff from level 1 and level 2. You're just expected to know it, and it's heavily applied, but you're just expected to know it. How do you think the labor force participation rate will change in the next 10 years? You know, I it's sort of a good question. And I think the jury is out on this. Is this going to be a job creator or a job destroyer? And for this, I think you really have to break up the timeline in short term versus long term. The slower the speed of adoption, the less likely it's going to be disruptive, the more likely it will be a job creator. The faster the speed of adoption, the more likely it is to be a disruptor, the more likely it is to be a job destroyer before it's a job creator. My bet is it will destroy before it creates. So if I had to say what's the next move, I would say job destruction would be the next move, or job elimination, if not destruction. So I have 100 employees. Maybe I don't need 120 employees to increase my output 20%. Maybe I can increase my output 20% with 100 employees, so 20 new jobs do not get created. So maybe no jobs are destroyed, but very few new jobs are created. We see evidence of that in recent graduate unemployment rates hitting almost 6%. And they usually trend under the national average. We would expect to see that at around 3%. So it's quite high. Because this is a general purpose technology that cuts across all industries, and the speed of adoption is wickedly fast. So the faster it is, the more disruptive it can be, the bigger the destroyer it can be in the near term before we see the job creation. I would bet on that first. Where do we leave off here? I work in leveraged finance, looking to move into private credit. Some would say that's the same thing. What LLM should I train myself on, where I can go to train myself on them? Well, the general purpose ones, I think are pretty much where you're going to get the most value out of what you're doing. If you understand how to use Gemini's, that's Google's language model, and their reasoning model, Notebook LM is fantastic for being able to analyze a whole bunch of stuff, and only that stuff. So you can upload 20 years of financial statements into Notebook LM, and the underlying model, it will use the underlying model to analyze only the data that you add, so that when you ask questions, it will not go outside of what you've augmented the model with, right? It's called RAG, retrieval augmented generation. So it'll only look at what you provide it with. So I put a video up today in the AI for Finance module showing how to use the last 18 quarters of Disney's 10 Qs to read across the 10 Qs. Previously, if you wanted to see the evolution of a particular line item quarter by quarter, you had to have 18 tabs open across the top of your browser, and you start with one quarter, you scroll to that point and you read. Then you go to the next tab, you scroll and you read, then the next tab, then the next tab, and you might say, hang on a second, I think I saw something. This is different from what I saw. Now you have to click back and say, now where did I see it? What tab did I see it? Notebook LM will give it to you in one long thing, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, Q5, Q6, and you can see the evolution over time. So you can read, instead of reading down a 10Q, you can read across a whole bunch of 10Qs. So in private credit, if you have a series of quarterly statements and you're trying to see how a ratio has evolved over that period of time, if you're doing exploratory work, it's fantastic. It's absolutely powerful on that. So once you start using it, it's not a question of which model to use. It's almost every model is pretty good. Once you start using it, it's a question of how do I ask it the questions I want? That's what's going to take you more time, is in learning how to prompt the model correctly. Once you get it down, all the models are within each other. I find when I give the same prompt to all the models, if I had to rank them, Gemini consistently ranks at the top. Manus is a very close second. Claude is at the bottom of the list. If you're doing code, Claude would probably be a killer for you. But for me, it's at the bottom of the list. Same with DeepSeek. Once I see the Gemini output and the Manus output, I get to DeepSeek. I go, I got that problem solved a lot better. And OpenAI is hit and miss. It's not my go-to model. Gemini is by far my go-to model, and Manus is a close second. And then you pick one you like, and then you start learning how to ask it questions. Unemployment rate, deflation pressures. How the hell are markets pushing higher and higher? Momentum. Momentum is your friend until the end, right? It is ignoring, but it's been doing that for a while. I will say that the market since COVID, since after COVID, I have been in awe, really, of the market's ability to ignore absolutely everything. V-shaped recoveries everywhere. When you think, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, this level of uncertainty would have kept the market in a trading, down and in a trading pattern until you had some clear resolution. Not anymore. You don't even need resolution. You just need uncertainty to show up. And then we say, okay, so we're uncertain about that. Now we know what we're uncertain about. Let's go back up. But the uncertainty is not resolved, but we know what we're uncertain about. Let's look past this. Let's ignore this. We'll look past this. Yeah, it's a lot of that. If you talk to most longer term asset managers, they seem to all be in the same camp of valuations are stretched at this point. We seem to be a little over our skis. They use the same words, but they're long only. They have to be fully invested. But they don't seem to be, committing new money to work at this point, especially when you're getting a 4.5% 10-year. Then you have the traders that overlay on top of the investors. And traders, momentum. When momentum shows up, you play it. And if you're benchmarked to the S&P, you have no choice but to play. Everybody gets dragged along. So until you have, and I've used this analogy before about the American markets, is they will go up on a rumor of a whisper of a hope on the horizon. Up they go. All you need is a rumor of a whisper of a hope. But if you see smoke on the mountains, somebody will put it out. You can see the fire coming down the side of the mountain, somebody will put it out. The fire could be across the street from your house, the whole grass, the whole park on fire. Somebody will put it out. The fire could be in your front lawn, and you look out the window, you go, somebody will put it out. Not until the curtains are on fire will Americans leave the house. So in the American market, you only need a hint of good news to send the market up. But bad news actually has to show up. For some reason, it doesn't get priced in. It gets priced in for, 9:30 to 9:37, and then, okay, we're good. But a hint of a whisper, of a rumor of good news 15 years from now, well, we better price that in today. So you get this feeling that, the market only wants to price in good news. And if you are betting that rationality will show up, the bad news actually has to show up. It actually has. It's not enough for it to be an uncertainty. It must actually show up. But the good news can be a plausible, small uncertainty in the future. Up you go. So it's, when you have markets that are biased towards that direction, that's momentum, right? To learn AI, do you think it will have to be done through a university degree to be recognized by employers? No. I don't even know if I think universities are sort of rushing to try to figure out how do we teach this, and trying to incorporate it into their courses. But it's still so new and evolving. I don't know that there is a definitive course yet that has this. You can probably, Google has a course on prompt engineering. I've been through it. It's okay, but it certainly is not going to give you the prompts that you need to get done what you want. Some prompts I have are 2 pages long, right? And you work on your prompt you have a Word document where you have all the different types of prompts you use, and you work on them all the time. One thing that you can do with your prompt to make sure that you can develop over time is, in every prompt, you write the words right at the very end: do not make any assumptions, ask clarifying questions. So that as it's going through and thinking, it'll stop and give you a series of questions. That tells you that your prompt was incomplete. So you can take those questions and you could say, okay, well, now I know how to improve my prompt a bit more. And it is, there is some structure to the prompt, that it should have certain contexts, certain contents. You give it a context, you give it a task, you give it a persona, you give it a few shots if you want some examples, like here's some examples of how things should be done. But that might get you a paragraph. Some prompts are a page and a half, 2 pages long, depending on what you want it to do. And the same prompt will not give you the same quality of output across the different models. That one prompt, if you try to get one model to give you closer to what you want, you find that you have to use different wording for it than you would with another model. I don't know that it's worth learning how to prompt 6 different models in 6 different ways. I think you develop your prompt and you give it to all the models and you rank them. For me, Gemini has consistently performed above average on almost every task I give it. That it tends to be my default output when I give the to all the models. I look at them and I think, wow, Gemini seems to be the most comprehensive. I get a few points from the other ones that I think, okay, well, Gemini missed this and missed that, but on comprehensiveness, I got to give it to Gemini. And someone who's seen a student who was just getting by in uni, what advice would you have to get better? I've currently passed level 2, sitting for level 3, but still feel lost. You do have to develop metacognitive knowledge, which is critical thinking skills, right? The ability to analyze a complex environment, understanding that and this is the hardest thing, is understanding oftentimes there is no answer, right? There are only trade-offs. There is no answer, but you still have to analyze the environment, and you do have to evaluate, understanding that you're making trade-offs. You have to have that skill. So it is, I mean, the market is one beautiful place to get that done, because every day you have to figure out what the hell is going on in this context. And it's incomplete information all the time. So you have to analyze a complex system with incomplete information and make an evaluation as to what you want to do. That's a brutally hard thing to do. Brutally hard. But that's the job, right? That's what you got to do. So I would say, if you throw yourself into the market in that sense, and you play that game, you will either be chewed up and spit out, or you will adapt by developing those skills, right? Let's see. I'm trying to avoid the market questions here. How will AI take over accounting jobs? Well, listen, if I accounting is a lot of declarative knowledge and conceptual knowledge. I know the standard, I understand the standard, and I can apply the standard, right? So I know the standard for cost recognition or revenue recognition. I can apply the standard as well. Analysts usually analyze everything after. But if that's what I'm doing, you can create a whole another model that sits on top of OpenAI or sits on top of Gemini. You can do that in AI Studio. You can build models that the engine is Gemini, and you building that model on top. Why couldn't you just give it the entire IFRS or the entire US GAAP, and then and I guarantee you, there's the accounting, the big accounting firms are probably already developing these to say, listen, we could probably eliminate a lot of accountants and maybe a lot of auditors by doing this. Maybe not all of them, but maybe we can increase that. One person can now bill 80 hours a week instead of 45 hours a week because this tool will be far more productive for them. Well, you can bill 80 hours a week, but if everyone starts billing 80 hours a week, the price of those billable hours will come down because there just aren't more statements to account for, right? I mean, you can only do so many statements before you run out of statements to do. So I think you could automate the cognitive skills of accountants much faster than you can financial analysts. I actually disagree here, but I think you're correcting. If you're good at Excel or Vim, the shortcuts you learned mentally still. Or I'm not sure I understand that. Took level 1 in May, and for those looking to pivot to asset management, you mentioned investment analyst as an entry level, which is usually it is. Do you have any career advice to those types of jobs? You've got to come with specific domain knowledge. Your employer is going to want to know. You want a job in finance? Do you know what the hell you're talking about? Your employer is going to want to know that you at least got that box checked. And then the employer is going to say, okay, well, what tools do you come with? Can you use the AI tools? What models are you familiar with? Can you read Python? Can you create code in Python? Can you evaluate the output? If Claude generates some Python code to do something, do you know when to have it execute code? Do you know when the code would be appropriate? Do you know how to read it, how to verify it? I think they want to see that you have deep domain knowledge. I shouldn't say experience, but deep domain knowledge and that you come with a toolbox ready to go, that you have tools that will help you. And since you understand the domain knowledge, you can evaluate the output to determine whether or not, well, this is correct, this is not correct, this is mostly correct, right? Not into CFA. Okay. And like your thesis on the ego trade. Well, we'll see. Again, it is, we all have to analyze situations, right? That's sort of my take of this is looking at the psychology of the man. I'm making my analysis comes to a conclusion that may be different from the market. And I will bet in that direction. Time will tell whether I'm right or wrong, right? But you gotta have some basis on which you take positions. That my position is counter to the crowd gives me some level of comfort that it is counter to the crowd. What is the best starting point for building knowledge in AI as it pertains to CFA-related roles, particularly in asset management? I would say the best way to progress in this is to start using the AI tools in your preparation for the exam. The next time you don't understand something or you have a question, ask it. A neat little thing you can do with AI Studio is you click on Stream, and there's another feature where you can share screen. And let's say you're looking at something on the screen. You don't have a PDF of it. It's just on the screen. You can share your screen and you can ask Gemini, do you see my screen? Yes, I do. And you can hover your mouse over something, say, do you see where my mouse is? Yes, I do. Can you explain that to me? And it will explain it to you in voice, not in text, in voice. And it will tell you in voice. And you can answer it back and say, okay, well, I don't quite get this. Explain it to me like I'm in high school. And it will then change its tone and explain it to you like you're in high school. If you start using these to prepare for your exam, by the time you're done, you will have gotten very good at using and interacting with these models. Maybe you get it to make flashcards for a particular reading. Very good at ethics. Ethics has, by the way, all learning modules have the code of ethics because CFAI makes it freely available for download from their site. And these models scrape the entire internet. So whatever it finds, it has. So for the code and standards, if you ask any model, are you familiar with CFAI's code of ethics? They'll say, yes, I am. Just say, generate a bunch of flashcards for me. And it will generate it, or just say, quiz me. And you can have the voice quiz you, where the voice asks you a question and you answer it. Correct. No, you're incorrect, and here's why. Okay, next. And then asks you another question. Correct. Asks you another question. You can get it to quiz you. Start using these tools. Now, when you think about that, you think, well, how could I actually use this to analyze a company? So you may, as I did in the video today, you upload 18 quarters of Disney. There's some conversation about Disney selling its streaming services, ESPN being one of them. You can say, tell me about the evolution of ESPN over the last 4 years in terms of their subscriber count. And it'll tell you exactly what its subscriber count was over time. Tell me, over the course of the last 4.5 years, what impairment charges it has taken that is content related. And it'll tell you over that period of time. You can get to know a company very quickly that way. But you've used Notebook LM to prepare for your exam. So you're familiar with that tool, and force yourself to use a whole bunch of the different models out there. You'll find that some are better than others, right? Yes, learn Python. AI is leverage for coding, not a replacement. Well said. AI is leverage for coding. It's not a replacement. It is leverage. You need to be a good consumer of code. By a good consumer of code, it means that you've done your research, you're going to the store, you know what to buy. You know the difference between all the models, right? You're looking at the output, you're saying, Okay, I know how to read this stuff. You trace it through, you say, okay, that's good. But you didn't have to spend an hour writing it. It did it in 5 minutes for you. That's the point of it, right? You may have to change a line or two or fix something, but I think that is well said, is that it is leverage, not a replacement, right? Everyone is the 10x programmer. You could start with 5 and get away with some stuff that you need use to be. I don't know what that means, but okay. Where did we leave off? I'm trying to find a question where Google course will help. Just hanging out with the model and throwing stuff at the wall is best. I agree. Just learn by doing. I absolutely agree. That's what I did. I took a whole bunch of, whatever course was available. I took a whole bunch of those things just to, sort of get to some level. And then I just started experimenting. First by asking it stuff that I knew the answer to. I just wanted to see how thorough it could be. And I'd look at the answer. I go, okay, well, let's ask it a bit more. Let's change its persona. Do you get a better answer if it is a university professor versus an industry analyst? Am I going to get a different answer or a better answer? Sometimes you do. Sometimes it's just the same answer, but said in a different way, which may help you understand it a bit more. And then maybe it's not exactly what I want, so you change it. But yeah, you just play around with it until you get the output you want. And again, the question is on us to answer if we are better at prompting the models or if the companies making them are better at understanding those types of prompts. What does it matter? What does it matter? I think you'll find over time, at least this is what I found, especially in the last 6 months, that these have gone from, it's okay, I can't really see how it's going to help me too much, to, wow, I can really see how these things are going to help me. Now, in 6 months, am I going to be saying, whoa, these are great? Or am I going to be saying, okay, pretty much the same place we were 6 months ago with small improvements here and there? I don't know. I do know as of right now, you can't ignore this stuff. You can't ignore this stuff. This is 1995, and you're looking at this thing called a spreadsheet, and you're saying, you know what? I think I'll pass. In finance, I think I'll pass. This thing's not going to hang around. I got my ledgers. I got with all the columns, and I got my pen. I'm good. Well, that wouldn't work out for you, right? I see many experts on the internet who say read as many books as possible to gain knowledge, which will help you in market for your journey in investing, build experience. What's your take on that and why? Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so it's good advice. It's not the only advice. All right, so it's read. Yeah, that's great advice. Only read. That's terrible advice. There's only so much time in the day. You only have so much time to read so much stuff. So it's not as if I can read all day long. At some point, you must interact with the real world. So at some point, enough reading, put the books down. But yes, always have reading as part of what you do. Never stop. What will happen over time is you'll stop reading books written about things that happened in the past, and you'll start reading this person's blog about the state of the industry now. And then you'll read this person's research about what's going on here. And you'll read this paper by the Fed. You'll have all of these little links that, every month I get this email from the Federal Reserve with all the papers it published, and you'll go down and go, oh, this looks interesting, and you head to that paper. You'll start reading more of that stuff. But yes, read. But reading is one thing. It's just one thing. It's like saying, listen, you got to go to the gym, you got to bench. If you're going to develop your chest, you got to bench. That doesn't mean that the only thing you do in the gym is bench press, right? It's important, but it's part of an overall thing. Also, it doesn't mean that you just go to the gym and lift weights. You have to combine it with diet. You have to combine it with building your cardio muscles as well, and having a good cardiovascular. So it is not one thing, but it's in a family of things. So read, yes, but not just read. You get what I'm saying, right? Somebody's trying to pitch a stock here. Let's just do that. There we go. All right. IFRS relies on judgment more than GAAP. It does. IFRS does give you more power. It is more principle-based as opposed to rules-based. But that doesn't mean that for many of the transactions, it doesn't require a hell of a lot of judgment. Once you decide on a standard and the application of a standard, you don't have to use judgment for every single transaction after that. Prompt-wise, you're not going to get a job as a prompt engineer. No, but if you can't smell a hallucination coming up and know how to correct it, that always transfers. Yep, you have to be a domain knowledge expert. You have to be able to evaluate the output. You're not going to get a job because you can prompt engineer, but you better be able to prompt engineer. All right. I don't know that you could say that with almost any tool. Is you're not going to get a job because you know how to use a particular tool, but in the job, that tool is something you are going to need. So you better at least know how to use the tool. It's not going to seal the deal, but the lack of it may be a deal killer, right? Where's the bull painting from, or did you paint it yourself? No, I did not paint it myself. I had it painted. I had the artist, and I have another. You go through that door over there. That goes into the kitchen, and there's the next room, which is the dining room, and then the next room after that is an extension I built onto the house, which is a cardio room. I just sort of moved things aside, and it was done there. It was done on site so that I could look at it and say, make it make it angrier, make it and it came together nicely. So it's expensive to do it that way, I'll tell you. I probably just could have gone to some galleries and found one already done. Saying, yeah, okay, that one's pretty good, but it is what it is now. I think it's kind of neat. It's actually quite big. It looks small behind me, but it's actually quite big. Do you think Michael Saylor is a genius or a moron? I think he's a genius who thinks you're a moron. Not you in particular. I think he's a genius who thinks people are morons. Because if you listen to any of his presentations, almost everything he presents is easily verifiably false. You can look it up. The Fed prints money at the rate of 15% a year. No, it does not. You can look it up. You can look at the growth in M2. You can look at it. It's wrong. It's just a wrong statement. We have a Bitcoin yield. Any company whose shares are overvalued, if they issue shares, will have an asset yield. It's just math. It's not a magic money printing machine. It's just math. He says what he says, not because he's a moron. He's a genius that thinks you're a moron. So he says stupid stuff because he thinks you're stupid, not because he's stupid. He's smart enough to recognize that you're going to believe him if he puts it in a way that you want to hear. What he's doing is he's lying to people who want to be lied to. If you can do that, you'll make millions. Lie to people who want to be lied to. So in that sense, he is a genius. I'd still debate him. If he wanted to hold to the statements he says publicly, he wouldn't last. I think he knows that, so I think he'd be smart enough to avoid any debate. I think he'd rather have an interview, but I think he'd avoid any real serious rules-based debate. I think he would be smart enough to recognize that. Could the generalist nature of the CFA designation become more valuable in the future as metacognition grows in importance? Yes, 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 because I do believe in the future there will be, as going forward, a premium to expertise. This is a signaling device that you have general knowledge, but it's still broad expertise in the field. Also, the existence of the designation behind your name in a world of what I think is going to be increasingly artificial output. Artificial in the sense that the generator of the output lacks the domain knowledge to even evaluate what it is they're putting out there in the world. And I, as a consumer of something, if I'm saying, look, I need to understand uranium a bit more, can you give me a report? Well, I don't know anything about uranium, so anything you tell me, I'm going to have to say, okay, well, if you say so. Well, now you're handing me this document, and you're handing me this document, but this one has blah, 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 comma, CFA, this one doesn't. And in a world where I'm getting all of these reports that I don't even know if the person generating the report knows what the hell they're talking about, but this one has the person's name on it, CFA. I have a lot more faith that that one has been evaluated and is probably closer to being true than all the other fake stuff. In fact, I could just go, I don't need somebody to hand me a report. I can go to Gemini and say, tell me everything you know about the uranium industry. And out it comes. I have no idea if it's right. It's probably 80% right, but I don't know which 20% is wrong. Is it the 20% that I'm going to base my investment on? I don't know. Now I need somebody beside me to say, is this shit true? Can you read this for me? That's where I think that's going to matter, because now you're signaling credibility. You're not just signaling that, hey, I know this stuff. You're saying, in a world of artificial output that's everywhere, don't you want somebody who knows what they're talking about to put their stamp of approval on it and say, I have reviewed this? Yeah, I think most definitely there's going to be a premium to this. I think the ROI on this will increase. Absolutely. What if you're at the edge of your domain knowledge and unsure? All these models get pretty good at gaslighting, but I guess that's an indictment of your own knowledge at that point. Well, when you say at the edge of your domain knowledge, do you mean at the edge of your domain's knowledge or the edge of your own domain knowledge? And if you're at the edge, you got to keep pushing. It's years to become an expert. Years. And it is incremental. Each year you're worth more and more. But if you've been with something for 2 years, you are not an expert. You are highly knowledgeable, but you are not an expert. It takes years to become an expert. And you will go through, there is a point where you go through this level of uncertainty of, I don't know what the hell is going on. You will start off highly confident. Oh, I know this. After a couple of months of learning something, I know this. And what happens is your confidence drops as your, let's see if I can line these up. As you gain more experience, your confidence starts to drop in your level of knowledge, and then it starts to go back up again. Right? So if you're saying, I was a lot sure of myself, I was a hell of a lot more sure of myself last year than this year, good. That means you're becoming aware of the size of the field that you do not know. You know that expression, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. It is a very dangerous thing. That you know a little about something. Some people think they know it all. I know a lot about this now because I know a little. They're unaware of how much they do not know. But the more you learn about something, the more you become aware of how much you do not know. But that in itself is a solution, because you start pushing into those areas that you do not know, or you decide that, you know what, I don't need to know all of that. Of what I need to know, I need to go deep. I need to go really, really deep. CFAI uses this T analogy for this. They sort of use an analogy that the CFA is the top of the T. And after you've done the CFA, you'll find some part, whether it's fixed income, and you'll dive deep, thereby making a T. Here's the CFA, and then you'll go deeper, and that's usually some industry experience, and that creates a T or T style knowledge. I like that. I think that makes a lot of sense, is that you're not going to be a deep expert in everything. Be a broad generalist, and that's what the CFA will give you, and then find something you like, and then you dive deep into that thing. The real-time APIs are really fun. Have models made you courses on things. Yeah, you can have a model make you a learning course for AI. I've realized while the AI is very helpful, do you see any structural impact on cognitive ability or becoming over-reliant on them? Some will. Some will. Absolutely, some will. Some will abdicate their responsibility to the model, and they will become. There is a psychological term for this called learned helplessness, but I seem to think I prefer to call it cognitively helpless, in that if they don't have the model available, they wouldn't know what to do next. They wouldn't have the next answer, or how to think about something. Some will, but we've always had students like that. You've always had students that seek to just get by, and they don't care how they get by. They just want to get by. The whole idea of Chegg was cheating, was that you could buy your paper, you could buy your assignment, and there's some students that say, good enough, I just need the grade. They abdicated their responsibility. And then they hoped that when they got out in the real world that they could get by there again. And sometimes they could and develop that knowledge later on, sometimes. This is the biggest proctor you'll ever have. You're not going to get past the model. If you abdicate your responsibility for that, then you will be left behind. Now, we can look at that from a micro and macro perspective. We can say from a societal perspective, that's rather dangerous, isn't it? But we've always had people that did that in school. From an individual perspective, a more Machiavellian perspective, let them cognitively cripple themselves for generations. It's more for me. It's less competition for me. Let them take the easy way out. The model will hold them to task later on in their career. When the model can consistently beat them and they can't rise above that because they've abdicated their role and their presence in their learning, it's just better for you. In fact, you may want to convince all your classmates to, hey, you guys should, you should just focus on learning AI and ask it everything you want, party every night, don't worry about it. And then you do the right thing. You learn deeply, you say. But yeah, if you want to cognitively cripple a whole generation, let them rely entirely on AI. I think you're right. It will. And then there are some other things where who cares? I mean, who cares about a particular skill? Does anyone know how to use an abacus? When calculators were replacing the abacus, you probably had teachers saying, well, students are going to learn the ability to count rapidly. Who cares? And then even when I was in grade school, you learned the multiplication tables. You weren't allowed to have a calculator in the classroom because it would make you lazy. Oh, you lose the skill. Who cares? In the world we live in today, with the speed of calculation that we have today, do I really need to figure out how to multiply 473 by 92? I've never manually done that. Not since grade school. I've never manually done that, ever. Is it not enough for me to understand the concept of multiplication? Must I learn the multiplication tables? I've never once been in a situation, I think, where I've had to rely, wait a minute now, I got my multiplication tables. I can do this in my head. Why? Right? So there are some skills where we would say, let it go. Most people, I'd say, in the city I live in, 99.999% don't know how to ride a horse. 100 years ago, that would have been That would have been suicide. It's like, how are you going to get around? If you don't know how to mount a horse and ride a horse, how the hell are you going to get around? You don't know how to care for a horse. You don't know how to clean the. What are you going to do? Well, we have cars. We don't have horses anymore. So yeah, the skill of maintaining and riding a horse has been lost. Who cares? Who cares? In 50 years, the skill of driving a car will be lost. In 50 years, it'll mostly be self-driving. I don't know if we'll live in an auto-sharing world, but they'll mostly be self-driving without steering wheels or pedals. The whole grid will be smart, and you don't know how to drive. It'd be like, who cares? Why 50 years ago we used to grab this round thing and we'd turn it it will be like, okay, Grandpa. I mean, nobody does that anymore. So who cares? There are plenty of skills throughout history that have simply been lost. Who knows how to fight with a sword? Right? 1,000 years ago, you better know how to fight with a sword. Well, who cares? I mean, who cares? Do you know how to, I could go on and on and on forever about all the different skills we used to know that now it's, who cares, right? Can you go and hunt rabbit, skin rabbit, and make rabbit stew? It's like, who cares? I just go to the store and buy it. Like, who cares? So some of this lower cognitive skills that we have, we may lose some of it. It may be in 20 years, well, who cares? Much like every other skill that we've sort of, the evolving human landscape has made obsolete. Who cares? Who cares, right? There may be somebody out there that knows in 20 years, that knows actually how to use a spreadsheet, and will go to a place and we'll see them dressed in the time period using the spreadsheet, and we'll go, oh, wow. And there'll be velvet ropes around them, and we'll go take the tour to the next person. Is kind of like going to these forts where everyone lives like it's 1855 and they're churning butter. Hey, look what we're doing, right? It's like, who does that anymore? Who cares? But it's just historical. So yeah, maybe in 20 years, we'll be able to go to a museum of technology and see somebody sitting there actually using a spreadsheet going, really? That's how you did things? With that flat thing with all the keys on there? That keyboard probably will disappear. 30 years, your kids will say, you actually had to hit different keys on a flat board to interact with your computer? Like what? They were like A, B, C, D, E, F. No, they were just all over the place. A was here, F was there, G was here. Sometimes you couldn't even find C. They'll think it's the most ridiculous thing in the world. So you lose your keyboarding skills. I can't type. I type like this with 2 fingers. I type pretty good. I type pretty good. Listen to what I just said. I'm a PhD. I type pretty well. But who cares? Who cares if you lose your typing skills when the interface will be either a physical interface or like you're just doing this, scrolling or whatever, or just voice or eye movement interface. I do think the keyboard is destined to disappear. Who cares? So it's a neat little game to play in your mind of well, these were big deals when the times were changing. We're going to lose these skills. They were big deals, but looking back on it, who cares? What today do you think is a big deal that in 20 years it might be? Who cares? Who cares? Now it's different this time because it is not skill in using a tool that we may be letting go. It's actually a cognitive skill that isn't used for one thing, but may be used across a whole bunch of things. That may be different. So yeah, this may be one of those things of we can't allow this to happen. We'll get too cognitively lazy, or it could be let some of these people get cognitively lazy. They're cognitively lazy to begin with, but I won't get cognitively lazy. Or it could be that, do we really need that particular skill? Do I really need declarative knowledge if I can look it up? Could be that, right? I don't know. That was a long answer, right? If you're getting fuzzy and trying to get it done, you want to be careful. I will usually, oh, that's a continuation of another comment. Do you code? Not anymore. I have a computer science undergrad degree that I completed in, I think it was, I had one course left. It was the summer of 2003. I finished that and then I started my PhD basically like a week later. I remember it because it was the day I was supposed to write was the big blackout that went from New York State all the way over to Detroit. Like the whole, I remember that. So it was canceled. I couldn't write the exam. It was like 3 days, 4 days before you could write it again. It was the last course I had. So I could, at the time, the languages were Unix, C plus, C plus plus, C plus, not plus plus, C plus, and Java, with a little bit of JavaScript later on, but that was really about it. So no, I don't know R or Python, but having learned languages before, I get what it does. I get the whole structure of a language and the use of libraries and that. I don't think it would take me much to learn it. I just don't want to. I just don't want to. Hallucinations are much trickier to catch. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I can skip all of those. I have heard. Let me go to the bottom and answer on the way up. Can I use your videos in YouTube, including your voice, to train and create an AI agent? This is the risk that anybody who puts stuff out there takes, is that somebody will use your image and likeness and voice to create something that then gives the illusion of some kind of respectability to the product they've created. That is the risk that's out there. I understand that risk. I don't know that I'm going to be deterred or afraid to put stuff out simply because that exists. I think depending on how it's used and where it's used, I think most people can understand it's not me. I have a non-compete in the CFA space. I cannot compete in the CFA space. Like, that was part of the deal of selling your business, is for a certain amount of time, you can't touch that space. That's fair. So if you see a Mark Meldrum AI chatbot out there somewhere, it's not me. It can't be me. It logically cannot be me. But what can I do? I mean, I'm sure there'll be that I'll have to deal with it at some point. But I would probably challenge you and say, why not do it yourself? Like, have you nothing to offer the world other than taking from other people and pretending that it's something else? Have you no skill of your own? Have you nothing marketable on your own to do? Have you fallen that low that all you can do is take from other people and sell it as your own? I would challenge you that way. I would say, why not create your own name? You'll never be able to sell a business that you build based on the personality of someone else, ever, which means all you have is cash flow and you're building no asset value, zero asset value. But if you build something of your own, maybe you'll have lower cash flow, but at least you're building asset value, something that you can sell, some IP that you own. But if all you're doing is copying someone else, no matter how much you get, it'll never, ever be worth anything on a sale, which means as soon as you stop, your cash flow stops. There is no residual value for you. But if you build something of your own, if you create your own brand and your own name, you do have some residual value that you can then sell. That's the bigger payoff. But this handful of money here and there to look like a big man in the club, while you've created nothing, you've only taken. I don't know. Is that the person you want to be? Now, some people will say, yeah, I'm good with that. Well, they're the people that would have been replaced by AI anyways, right? So um, the left tail, those people who are doing that or who will do that, they'll always be with us. There's really nothing you could do. There will always be those people. But they will only ever have a little bit of cash flow today. They will never ever build anything of any permanent value because nothing is ever theirs. They must continue committing their crimes, whether it be crimes that cross legal boundaries, crimes that cross moral boundaries or ethical boundaries. That is the sum total of all they'll ever be is the cash flow they can generate that day. You want to be that? The time it takes you to imitate somebody else for a year is a year lost on building your own brand and building yourself. You want to do that? Some people say, "Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with that," because they want the short-term payoff. But it's easy enough for me to put some videos out there because I got a big enough reach. I got big audiences on Reddit, on LinkedIn, on YouTube to say, "You see this one? It's fake," and then you're done. And you're done. That would be the end. So what would be the point? Right? What about cursive? Yeah, I can barely write when I make notes. It's like I got to keep crossing out words. Going, I'm never going to be able to read my own notes. I can barely take actual written notes anymore. Um, Probably don't need to. I could probably just open a document and start talking. But I like to make like you write a few words and then you'll circle them and then you'll draw them to connect it to another thought. I can't really do that effectively in Word. Right. I know a bit of everything is beneficial, even if you don't use it necessarily. Even in university education, do you really need to know all that to do most jobs? No. But is it better to know than not to know? Um, I don't know. I think about some of the things I had to take, and the one I'm still pissed about all these years later is HR. It was boring as all hell. God damn it, it was boring. And not once did I ever find any of it useful in one single bit ever. Not one Trivial Pursuit question was on HR. It didn't even help me there. Never once in conversation did it come up and I said, "Oh, yeah, I've got," if you have a staff member who's like, it's always just been bloody boring as hell. Um, that one I had no, no use for at all. Some of the other courses that you were forced to take, I was thankful for. 20th century history, you needed humanities. It was fun. It was a great course. It was fun. You needed a science course. I did geology, as did everyone. Uh, I didn't learn a lot. I can't remember a damn thing. I didn't learn a lot. Could have probably done without that one. Yeah. But what you can really do without, I think, in university are all the filler courses that you don't need, but that you have to fill out so many level two, level three, like the 200 courses, the 300, the 400s, and you're taking courses sometimes in a particular semester because there's nothing else offered, but you need another four because you're going to graduate in April, but you need three more 400s. There's two that are good, and then the one you want is until next semester. So you're looking around for a 400 course and you go, well, there's something in organizational behavior. I guess I'll take that. And you don't want to. Like, my God, you don't want to. But you got to fill out your requirements. That's bullshit. That is bullshit. I should be able to take a course from another school at that time that has something. And if I want to drive to it, I can drive to it. But I should be able to take something else. Maybe universities have changed now, where your last 5 courses don't have to have residency. When I went through university, you had to satisfy residency requirements, which means your last 5 or last 10 courses must be from the particular university. You couldn't bring in something from another university. Because of that, I think you could probably cut out a whole bunch of that shit, turn a 4-year degree into a 2-year degree. Anybody who's interested in learning will continue to learn after they're done. Anybody who's not interested in learning wasn't learning anything anyways. So why not let the people self-select? I've never stopped learning. Have you? I mean, when you see, if you're uh, in a bookstore, do you get turned on? Do you like, oh, well, look at this and this one and this one? Do you get excited with books? And then, do you like watching documentaries and like watching the Nature Channel and the Science Channel and all that stuff? Then you have a mind that always wants to learn. Why force it down your throat in 4 years and make you stay out of the job market for 4 years and pay for 4 years of tuition? If you have it in you to learn, you'll continue to learn after you're done. If you don't have it in you to learn, you probably weren't learning anything in the courses you took anyways. So let's just save everybody the trouble. Let's turn all 4-year degrees into 2-year degrees. Let's make it trimester and let's get on with it. This 4-year business, I don't agree with that. All right, I think we're almost done here. Where are we? An hour 10 in. We seem to have got almost everybody back. I've heard you talk about expertise in finance is needed in this age of AI. So is expertise is that I get to a certain point where I can say I know about every field in finance, or I know it all? You'll never know it all. You'll be aware of how much you do not know. But what will happen is over time, you'll start to focus and specialize. I did. There's a whole world out there, but I really only know the US. I don't even know my own country's market, Canada. It's too small to invest in. I don't know any. I know nothing about Europe. I know nothing about China. I know nothing about Australia, Japan. I know nothing about any of the other markets. I know the Fed very well, but I don't really know the ECB. I don't really know all the other central banks. I couldn't tell you who the head of central banks were outside of a couple. I know the political climate in the US. Not so much Germany, not so much UK. I get left, right. You get that stuff, but I really don't know enough about that. You'll only really be an expert in a few things, a really deep expert. You can't know it all. You have to let it go. At some point, you must let it go and say those 3 words, I don't know. That's the limit of my expertise. I don't know. Once you start saying, oh, I can answer that, I can answer that, I can answer that, I can answer that, it's more than likely that most of what you're saying is either very surfacey or misinformed or wrong. But you can't know it all. You can't possibly know it all. Don't even try to know it all. Know one thing or one industry or one subsector deeply and really well, right? Let's see. I think some people are just having conversations and not really questions. If you know your multiplication tables and basic multiplication of figures up to 12 is faster in your head than it is to take out your calculator and type it in. Well, yeah, but I don't know how often in life I'm faced with what's 7 times 6? Quick. Most of the interfaces I use, especially in the markets, have all the information I need right on the screen. I don't have to sit and figure things out or multiply things out. And I deal with enough zeros and position sizes that are large enough that multiplication up to 12 isn't going to do anything for me. Isn't really going to do anything for me. I think if you have a sharp mind, you didn't need to learn the multiplication tables. You would have just you would have figured it out. There are people today who are Wharton graduates who can't multiply. Google, Trump can't multiply Howard Stern. And it was an interview done on Howard Stern where it was senior, junior, and Ivanka. And they had all graduated from Wharton. So Howard Stern says, okay, well, what's 7 times 16? They couldn't answer it. None of them could answer it. None of them could. So there you go. 3 Wharton graduates and none of them could multiply. And I'm sure they went through multiplication tables. If your brain isn't wired if you're not sharp, it doesn't matter how much of this you do. If your brain is sharp, you get it on your own. But today, I mean, do they teach multiplication? I don't know. Maybe some of you are parents out there. Do they teach multiplication tables in school still? Do they still have to drill through the multiplication tables? Trump posted, everyone should evacuate Tehran immediately. Israel already did that, right? Israel already said earlier today, Israel already said everybody out. Let's just have a look at where that puts futures. I'm not expecting to see much here. SPY. Oh, actually, SPY did take a little hit. Down at 683. It ended the day at almost 603. If anyone is on Discord, you'll see the trade I did today with SPY. Yeah, I can see the drop off right at 630, 602.50 to 601. Yeah, this is a good example of whistling past the graveyard. Is that we were well aware that Israel today had already said, get out. I would, if Trump said something and Netanyahu said something, and you asked me what's the more credible threat, I'd say Netanyahu's threat is more credible than Trump's, because Trump threatens all the time, and there's very little follow through in it. I would say Netanyahu's threat is the more credible threat. He already said that today. Israel already issued an evacuation order. Well, they can't issue an evacuation order, an evacuation warning. They said, hey, if you're in Tehran, get the hell out, because we are coming, right? Speaking of Chegg, it's stock shot up since you talked about it on Discord. Did it really? Well, I think that's something that's going to be like a Barnes and Noble. It's like, really? It still exists? Increased learned helplessness could moderate CFA program enrollment rates if less people have the resiliency. By the way, this is absolutely incredible. Remember that when you were a kid, Orange Crush? It's a fun drink, but look at this. It's the zero sugar Orange Crush. Zero sugar Orange Crush. I'm waiting for the cream soda, the crushed cream soda, and the grape soda to be zero sugar. This is fun stuff. Like, you drink tea and coffee and water during the day, but you want something fun. This is fun stuff. I haven't had Orange Crush since I was a kid, I think. Where do we leave off here? Increased learned helplessness could moderate CFA program enrollment rates if people have less resiliency. Well, listen, there are a lot of people. I think there are like 200,000, somewhere around 200,000 charter holders globally. And this is, 50 years now since 68? What are we, over 50 years since the CFA has been granting the charter? There's only like 200,000 globally, but there's something like 1.1 million partial completes out there, meaning that of all the people that have gone through, you've got something like 1.1 million that quit after level 1, failed level 1, never went back, quit after level 2, etc. Think about that, 1.1 million. Now, you could say of that 1.1 million, maybe half of them never should have been in level 1 to begin with. There are no entrance requirements to write level 1. So you might have had somebody who says, I'm going to write the CFA, where maybe their professors are like, not you, just save your money, like, not you, right? Because not that they're discouraging them, but they just know that, nah, you don't have it. And even if you get through level 1, you are not getting through level 2 or 3. Like, why even start? So there are a lot of people who probably never should have taken level 1 to begin with. So if it does increase or decrease the amount of people who sign up, perhaps those who do sign up will be of a higher caliber. And if they keep the same system for the minimum passing score, it could get more competitive. In other words, it could actually create even better candidates, right? People become more cautious when rates go up. It's a signal, not a direct action to make a change. It's dependent upon people acting on it. Okay, I'm not too sure what that is. I asked a high schooler, what's 8 by 8? They have no clue. I was in shock, to be honest. And I'm sure in 1945, Grandpa Ned said, can you take this horse out to the barn and put it in its stable and wash it? I don't know the terminology. Take the saddle off and wash it down. And the kid probably said, how do I do that? And Grandpa Ned probably thought, you must be kidding me. I'm in shock. I mean, it could be something like that. So we have to sort of think about, well, what world are they going to be in? And is that skill going to be an important one? The other thing is, who's this high schooler? Is it a representative high schooler, or is it somebody whose parents might have said, I told you, we're hoping for architect. And I mean, we're hoping for woodworker here. We're hoping for plumber here. That's our best hope. We're hoping for tool maker or something like that. Maybe you asked somebody that just shouldn't have been asked. Someone finishing an MSc business finance, aiming for a career in quantitative trading, would you recommend the CFA or an MFE? I'd probably say more computer science and data science if that's where you're going. The quantitative stuff, the CFA is asked almost no time, but the other stuff, data science, machine learning is entry. You need that on the way in. So I would. I don't know that I would word it the way that you have, given or at least the choices that you have. I think if you're aiming for a career in quantitative trading, you don't need the CFA. It would be there's the overlap is minimal. Only the quant would be important, but you can get all of that in a data science specific program. I don't know how to write for a loop from memory in Python, but I can generate them whenever I need them, and when I should use recursion instead. Okay. All right, so let's scroll down. Most people don't need multiplication. Oh, okay, we're on that. I can quickly generate. I feel I can pick AI generated videos. So can I. For the most part, they seem to have a weird flicker to them. Some do. Some are really good. But some are have situations in them that are just too ridiculous. Like I saw one today where everyone was standing on a lookout tower and the lookout tower fell and broke. And I looked at it going, see, now I don't even know if that's real. It doesn't look real to me. It looks rather fake to me, because as the thing started shaking, the people on there just kept standing there like everything was okay. You didn't see them bouncing. I thought, I don't know. Is it real? Is it fake? So you start looking through your news feed. Is there any headline about the, because it seems to me this would have made headlines, not just be on a YouTube short video. Nothing. So it's like, I don't even know if it's real anymore. But it looked like it could have been real. Okay, I think we're done with the AI questions with finance here. Let's scroll back up. Used the applied series to learn to do a financial model to break into corporate finance. Will this be useless in 3 to 6 months? Well, no. Deep Excel skills, I think, will be useless in time. Not today. If you're very knowledgeable with Excel, it's very useful today. If you don't know anything about Excel, you know how to use a little bit of it. I don't know that I would do 20, 30-hour courses in becoming an Excel ninja. because I think in 12 months or so there'll be models that will do all of that for you. In the applied level, when you went through the financial modeling part, you will have noticed that we spent a hell of a lot more time on the assumptions, on how do we model this. Um, we followed the rules of building a 3-statement model. We did it all in one. We built our schedules. We made sure everything was in the same goal. We followed all the best practices, all of the rules. That will make you a good consumer of financial models. The consumer, or the producer being the AI that puts out this model, you can then look at it and say, okay, this makes sense. There are some that if you have circularity and you have an error and you can't find it and fix it, you can give it to these models and it will find the error for you. So it's pretty good at that kind of stuff, right? I'm trying to avoid the too much market stuff. Let's scroll up a bit more. I love the chart you drew on Discord separating finance and AI knowledge. So intuitive. Yeah, I can't do it. I can't do it here. It is in the applied series in AI for finance. I did do that. I think it was when I talked about the Apple paper. Let's see. Thoughts on AI leading to greater market inefficiency with the heightened possibility of fake events. I think some have already occurred, right? Mostly through either a fake news story or a fake tweet. I think some of that stuff has already occurred. More of that will occur. Of course it will. More of it will occur. Creating more inefficiency. I would almost argue we're pretty inefficient right now. Or maybe that's the wrong way to say it. When you say, if we're going to stay true to the word inefficiency sort of implies correctness, but it doesn't necessarily mean correctness. Efficiency means that information will get reflected in prices very quickly, that there is no impediment to that happening. So that as new information hits the market, prices are continually adjusting to that information. Now, you can argue that the adjustment in price is wrong. That signal and that information doesn't mean this, it means something else. You can argue that it's wrong. And you can make your bet based on that, and it will, depending on how many people agree with you or not, it will move prices such that whatever price there is doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right price. A better interpretation is that it is the money weighted average of all the opinions about that information. 1,000 people could say we disagree, and one multi-billionaire could say, no, I'm on the other side, and the price would be higher because they have more money. So it's not how many people agree versus disagree, it's the money weighted average of all the opinions, which could be wrong. So we could say a market is efficient, informationally efficient, because it prices information in quickly, but that you disagree with the consensus. You can say that. Will AI make the market less efficient if we mean in an informational sense? No, I don't think so. Will it lead to more opportunities for alpha because the market will be wrong more often than not? That's a good question. Will it be just as wrong as it is right? Or will it have a bias to being wrong? If it has a bias to being wrong, then that opens up a lot of alpha. But if it has no bias, if it'll be right, then it'll be wrong. But overall, it's neither too wrong or too right, then no, then it is probably just as good as any bunch of humans trying to figure out what the hell is going on. the big money is not going to abdicate all their decision making to the model. The small money will. If there's going to be investing based on model output, it'll more than likely be retail. But if I'm running a $80 billion bond fund, I am not chat GPTing my way through the day. My team are not doing that. We're going to have the smarter analysis. We may use the model along the way to do some of the tasks that would be grunt work per se. But I think the bigger the money, the more likely they are to not rely on the output. The less money, the more likely it's retail, the more likely they are to hand a couple of 10Ks to a model saying, is this a good company? What's this company worth? Naive questions like that. Yes, this is a strong company in a strong industry. Okay, I'm going to buy. A money manager with significant assets would never, ever stop at that level. So it could end up being a great money transfer system from the AI users to the non-AI users. Could be. Yikes. Oh, geez, a YouTube thingy is really active here. Well, that's good. Taking some pressure off of me to answer questions here. Okay, I think we're done here. I'm going to scroll to the bottom, read a couple on the way up, and then what do we got? 7:19. I have a particular type of diet. I don't eat till 2 in the afternoon. My window is 2 to 3. I can eat, and then I can't eat again till 8. And then I must finish by 9. So it's coming up on my mealtime soon. Does Apple need AI? Well, that's an interesting question, right? Does Apple need AI? I guess we've relied on our devices, and we don't really rely on our software. We rely on our devices. We don't say, I want this, and I'll take whatever device gives me this. It's I'm getting the iPhone, or I'm getting Android, or whatever the case is. It's a hardware decision. AI could change that. It could be, I need these features, and Apple doesn't have an AI that does this, but this does, and this does. So we may change from an allegiance to the hardware name to an allegiance to the AI name. So does Apple need AI? At this point, I would say it would be dangerous to not have it. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it can just make a deal with AI. But when was the last time that we saw a company who was strong in hardware decide that they didn't need the software and made a deal with another company for the software, thinking that, no, people buy the hardware. The software is nothing. They buy the hardware. That was IBM using Microsoft and giving Microsoft, what was it, $10, $15 for every IBM sold with MS-DOS on it. IBM was the king of hardware at the time, the king of hardware. And they said, software, who cares? Right? This could be Apple's IBM moment, that if they don't have it, look what happened to IBM. I mean, the competition that came in, because now Windows and DOS and Windows could work on any IBM compatible computer, because IBM didn't lock down the software. Apple did. The Mac OS system was written only for the Mac. There was never a Mac clone, ever. The whole industry, never a Mac clone. You must buy a Mac. It was tightly married together. So there was no distinction between the operating system and the hardware. You want Mac OS, you buy a Mac. You want Windows, you can buy a Lenovo, you can buy an Acer, you could buy a Hewlett Packard, you could buy an IBM, you could buy a Compaq, you could buy any of 50 different brands, because it became more important to have the software, which was Windows. Who cares what the hardware is? Is it going to be more important to have the AI, and who cares what the hardware is? If that's the case, Apple needs an AI. Period. If it's not, if it's not going to be the case where you're going to say, look, it is the hardware. I want the hardware, and it would be nice if it had some AI. I don't care where I get my AI from. I think I'd put 50-50 on that. And if you can put 50-50 on that, is that a chance you want to take if you're the CEO of Apple? Apple had a big fight with Windows, right? Microsoft stole most of its stuff from Apple. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, both companies were suing each other for how many years till they finally settled in the late 90s. If there's one thing Apple should understand, it's the history of Windows and IBM. Apple should understand that people went shopping for the software and they didn't care what the hardware was. If that happens again with AI, well, yeah, you could see how suddenly that's a big freaking deal for Apple, right? I don't know. What's your take on that, right? Those sugar drinks are not good for you either. Too much disturbs gut health. Those zero sugar drinks are not good for you either. Too much. Well, I don't have too much. I like one a day, maybe two, but certainly not like I'm not going through half a case a day. Half a case a day. I had to buy a new computer this year and bought a Dell. Shh, don't say that. How do you think tech stock will perform in current geopolitical investing savings squeeze? Tech stocks are tech stocks. Tech stocks will, this is something. Those budgets rarely get cut. Lots of budgets get cut, but the more we move into a digital and everything digital age, this is not a discretionary budget anymore. So I think tech is almost. You could almost call it going forward. It could almost be considered a staple. I saw a video where a guy posed moral dilemmas to popular AIs. Claude was the most empathetic. Claude is. The guardrails on Claude are almost ridiculous. That if you want any kind of edgy answer at all, because we live in an edgy world, maybe I need an edgy perspective. Don't ask Claude. In fact, don't even ask ChatGPT. The Chinese models are way better at that because the Chinese models really don't care about that shit. Gemini, yeah, it's hard to get it to answer in a certain way, or, they all have these tight, I'm going to call it left-wing guardrails on it. But the Chinese models don't care. Ask one of them if you want something more edgy. Hardware innovation has hit a wall. Software is the most critical. Always has been, always will. The key to the iPhone was iOS and later the App Store. That's true. And following from that argument, could it possibly be AI that displaces all of that? So I seem to think it's too big a risk to take to not have AI. Too big a risk. Would it be worthwhile doing a lecture on AI generation of images, video, and audio similar to the ones you did on Amazon Applied Series? I don't know how it's finance related, though. Right? I'm not sure how, like, generating a video, how's that going to be finance related? There is plenty of good tutorials on YouTube for that. That while I could, experiment with video generation on Veo and get something done, I'd have to know, how does this relate to the world of finance? And I don't know. So I don't know that it would be relevant for it. Fun and interesting, sure, to be able to generate these video clips. Most of the models that you pay for do limit the amount of video clips you can do. I think the longest one I've seen is 16 seconds, but they do limit what you can do. Unless you're into that space, whether it be graphic artist, advertising, creating content, whatever the case is, unless you're in that space, as far as a financial analyst or an asset manager, I'm not It's not clear to me why this would be uh, a skill that could be useful, other than hey, look at this, is kind of neat. You can bring an idea in your head to life if the guardrails let you. VO3 has some tight guardrails. Don't ask for anything edgy. You're not going to get it. Everything must be sunshine and rainbows, and you better have a multicultural cast. It will, if you just ask for just some basic stuff. Ask for somebody smoking a cigarette, you're not going to get it. They won't give you that. Oh, well, it's safety protocols. Who's going to see this person smoking a cigarette? It's like, well, what if the character needs to be smoking a cigarette? Not going to get it. So you're going to have to go to something else. But again, you'd have to have a reason to be there. I can't think of why a financial market participant has a reason to be generating video. So probably not. Would it be worthwhile doing? Oh, what do you answer that? If you were chasing more beta, would it be better to buy the commodity producers instead of the underlying commodity? Well, I think you answered your own question, right? You're chasing beta. The commodity doesn't have beta, right? Commodity beta is the sensitivity of equity prices to the movement of the market as a whole. Beta is market risk. Commodities, that's why they're diversifying, is they don't have beta. So I think you've answered your own question there. If you're looking for alpha, then yeah, I would say the commodity itself, not the commodity producers. If you're looking for just better return per penny of movement in the commodity. So if the commodity is up 10%, maybe the producers are up 3, 4, 5%. I would always bet at this point, especially for copper, I would always just bet on copper. I don't know too much about the other, like aluminum. I don't bet on aluminum, uranium, that kind of stuff. Platinum, palladium. I don't know much about them. But copper, if I had to bet, I would be futures over producers, hands down. Scientifically, and according to you, in how many areas in one domain, a number of domains can one and should be an expert? I don't know that there's a number. You have some, polymaths that are experts in 5, 6, 7 different disciplines. They're excellent violinists or pianists. They speak 7 languages. They have 4 degrees. Like you have some that are just absolutely incredible like that. I don't know that there is a number, really. I think it depends on your intellectual bandwidth, but there comes a point where you can't do it all, where you do have to choose. You do have to let some things go. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about you to be able to come up with a number. 2 to 3, I would seem to think, is about, well, let's say 1. You could be really great at 1. You could be pretty good at 2. You could know a lot about 3. But again, I don't know enough about you to know how to answer that. You can get Claude to be controversial. Just ask it where its red line is and tell it to get as close to it as possible. Look at this. Look at the information we're sharing. Also, you can use hypothetical characters to push it. Oh, let's see if we can push it. I find that the Chinese ones just give me what I ask for. Have you looked into AI agents for performing tasks and processes? The understanding I'm getting from AI agents, and this is from somebody who actually works with them, is that the hype and the promise is way more than the reality. That they're really just not ready, and that you do have to ask the question: what's the difference between the AI agent and code you can write that does interact with other things that you're using? And sometimes the line just isn't there. Sometimes it's like, why do you need an agent when I could just write this up this way? Um, so this is somebody who uses this stuff, who builds these things, that says the reality just, it's not the same as the hype. Maybe it will be someday, but it's not there. It's not there today. But I wouldn't throw it out. I wouldn't dismiss it. I'm sure it's going to get better. Do you see ML AI hitting a wall in the close future, or rather some areas? Well, no, I don't see it hitting a wall. I see particular architectures hitting a wall. So the transformer architecture that's being used now for the current AI models, that is probably going to hit a wall at some point. But machine learning and AI are very broad categories that you can get a change in the architecture that's being used, and it can then proceed beyond. Is it going to get to some point where everybody says, that's it, we're done, here we are, Valhalla, this is as far as we can go, we're not going to get any further? No, it'll keep going and going until there's another breakthrough. But I think we've had that big leap, that big move up, and now I think it's going to be a lot of incremental innovation until the next radical step up. Who knows when that's going to be? That's the whole thing about radical innovation, it's exogenous to the system. Incremental innovation is endogenous. You can sort of map it out. You could say, well, we have these technologies, we know where the gaps are, so we expect it to continue to improve. But to come up with a radically new technology, that is exogenous, unpredictable by its very nature. Will we have another exogenous radical innovation? Yes, absolutely. I guarantee it. When? I have no idea. 6 months, 6 years, 60 years? No idea. No idea. They're unpredictable by their very nature. But are there people working on it? Yeah. Is there a definition of the problem? Yes. And if you have a definition of the problem, you have a path. That is the biggest path towards your solution, right? So, what are your overall thoughts on the Canadian economy? You can find this funny. I live in Canada, as I said earlier. I know very little about the Canadian economy. I know very little. I couldn't tell you, where we were in terms of almost any economic measure. I don't really know. I don't follow it. Do you think it's a good use of AI that we will make it debate with us for more clarity on things? Absolutely. Absolutely. You tell it to take the other side of everything you say. The frustrating thing is it'll never agree with you. It'll never concede. It'll never say, oh, you know what? You're right. Okay, your argument is bulletproof. It'll always keep going. So you never know when you're done, right? You never know when you're done, but you can have a debate with it by the rules. You can have a debate with it. If you follow the rules of debate, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, the right to intercede at times at points of information. It will debate with you, but who's going to vote? But yeah, I think that's a great thing to do is to get the AI to disagree with everything you say, and then you tell it what you plan on doing, and it'll disagree with you. The other thing you can do is say, disagree with everything I say, and tell it the exact opposite of what you want to do, and it'll help make your case. You can say, disagree with everything I say, or act as a counter argument to everything I say. I really want to go to my girlfriend's parents this weekend, and it'll give you a whole bunch of reasons. It'll push back on everything you say of why you shouldn't, and it might have some good stuff, right? Let's see, you could start thinking of all the applications that you could use it in. Studying for CFA level 2, recent grad, unemployed, but getting income support. Okay, well, that's good. Is it better studying, actually? Is it better studying? in Canada, so taxes high and wages are low, could move to US. I'm not sure what the question here is. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what your question, Alan, is. I'm not sure what it is. Is it better studying? Uh, I'm not sure. Is it better studying with income support? Yeah. Why the hell not? Somebody gave me income support and said, I want you to study this book while I pay you. Sign me up. Sign me up. Does Bitcoin have any use left when stablecoins are accepted by the government? No, I think Bitcoin has its own use in very, very small use cases. Um, I guess it'll depend on the level of regulation and the level of reporting. If you remove the volatility and something has a predictable value, I think number one, you're going to get a lot more. If there is going to be use of it, you're going to get a lot more of whatever it's useful for. But once you throw volatility into something, um, I would say that before you even find a use case, you have to solve the volatility, which hasn't been solved. And even with stablecoin, I still have the situation of me thinking, well, where would I use it? What would I use it for? Now, I do send money to Costa Rica because I have a place down there. It costs about $9,000 a month to operate that place because there's staff and it's a big place. Um, so the bank account drains over time, and then you got to send more money down, which is 24 hours it gets there. But then it could be up to 2 weeks to get the bank to release it because you got to prove the source of your funds. And Costa Rica is an odd country. For some reason, people answer one email at a time, and that's it. So you can get an email from the bank saying we need you to prove the source of funds, and you could answer them immediately. Too late. You're going to have to wait 24 to 48 hours for them to answer. Okay, and if they have another question, and if you answer them immediately, you still, let's reset the clock another 24 to 48 hours before I get a reply. For some reason, I think it might be a law in Costa Rica where you can only answer one email to somebody once every 24 or 48 hours because it takes up to 2 weeks just to get them to clear. Now, could stablecoin solve that problem? Sure, I can get it there in stablecoin. But now the people I pay must accept stablecoin. Otherwise, I got to convert it to US dollars and drop it in the bank account. And guess what happens? Where'd you get this money? So it doesn't solve any problem I currently have. Not really. Now, let's say that I was running my CFA business again, and I'm just going to make up numbers here. Let's say I'm doing 5 million a year in sales. And since it's all online, I'm using Stripe. Stripe is 3% across the board. I lose 150 grand every year just in fees. 150 grand gone. And then there's the time from the time they get the money to the time they release the money. Now you can have them release it every day, but you go on a weekly basis. Still, there's a delay from the time they receive it to the time you get it, which could be 24 hours. For some businesses, that's a big enough float. 150 grand it cost me. So what if I accepted stablecoin? Now I don't need the card processor. And since it's stable, I don't have to worry about the value of that thing changing on me overnight. Now if I can get everybody to pay me in stablecoin, I save 150 grand a year. But what is the likelihood that all my customers will say, hey, I have a use for stablecoin as well? That might only be 3% or 4%. Now, I do pay people in the US. I do have US expenses. So it would save me from converting Canadian to US all the time if I could just hold the stable coin. When you're in Canada, if you charge US dollars, Stripe will process it in US dollars, deposit it in the bank account here, boom, converts to Canadian. You don't get the US. You get the Canadian version of it, whatever the exchange rate is. And you say, well, what if I have to then just convert it back to US to pay bills? Well, then that's on you. So that's a bit of a drag. The stable coin would do a lot to do that, but the people I got to pay have to accept the stable coin. They'd have to have a reason to accept stable coin. So the theory is neat. The problem it solves is narrow. It clearly solves a problem for the merchants, And the only way to get the stable coin is if you get all your users to pay for it. But if it doesn't solve any problem for the users, no one's going to use it, which means you have to incentivize people to use it by giving them, look, you'll get a 1% discount if you pay with stablecoin. Why? Because it would cost me 3% if you paid with cash. That just might not be enough to encourage people. $400 subscription I can get for $396. Okay, I got to set up a stablecoin account. I got to get money into the account. I got to transfer it from my bank to there. I got to think, forget it, $4, forget it, right? You're never going to get anywhere. So the arguments for crypto are all plausible arguments with low probability, but plausible, but not probable. Would a lot of money flow into stablecoin? It depends on who issues it. And it depends on the willingness of me to hold a stablecoin balance, right? It depends on who issues it and my willingness to hold it. Can I have a situation where my bank in Costa Rica is part of a network that issues stable coins in US dollars, where I wouldn't have to keep proving the source of funds? Not going to happen. Not in Costa Rica. Not going to happen. But let's say that were the case, and only with stablecoin. Well, then now I have something. But other than that, I think about it and I think, well, I'm sure there's a market for it. I'm sure there are people who have a very definite, there are little parts of the market where, yeah, that would really solve a lot of problems, but mass adoption, I'm still not seeing where I have a problem that needs that solution. Now, I could ask Gemini to say, look, this whole stablecoin thing, I want you to investigate it, do some research on it, figure out everything, and tell me where in my life I lead a normal life. Tell me where in my life that this would benefit me. And I could look at all the ideas and go, maybe it has an idea. Where I say, oh, I never thought of that. Yeah, that. But I don't know, right? Taking level 1 November, did a deep dive into the prerequisites. Should be done with them by July. Yeah, why bother them? Do you think that there is a decent overlap in the topics? Well, if you're not familiar with the prerequisites at all, then sure, maybe review them, look at them. I wouldn't do a deep dive on prerequisites. I don't know that it's worth that much. Just jump right in. And if you find that you're lost, then use the prerequisites. If you find that, oh no, I can pick it up from here, then you don't need the prerequisites, right? So stable coins are useful for almost instantaneous transfers of a large amount of money with low fees. When do I need an instantaneous transfer of a large amount of money? Like, when do I need an instantaneous transfer? I go to the bank, I say, I need to send 100,000 somewhere, and it's got to happen right now. It's got to happen in the next 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Come on. I need it. I don't know that I've ever been in a situation in my life where I needed to transfer a large sum of money instantly. Right now, no questions asked. I don't know if I've ever had that problem in my life. So let's say that it does that. Okay, great. The next time I need to transfer a large sum of money instantly, I'll let you know. Could be 30 years before you see me again. It's like, okay. It's like a real estate agent knocking on your door saying, if you ever sell your house, give me a call. Yeah, well, if I do. Not today. Just because you give me a card doesn't mean, oh, I should sell my house because I came across a real estate agent. Who out there, show of hands, who out there says, oh, God, thank God, I don't know how many times I've needed to transfer a large sum of money instantly, but simply couldn't. Who cares? So yes, it has that ability. A Corvette, the new Z06 Corvette, can go almost 200 miles an hour. Good luck. Without getting a ticket, it may have all of that capacity, but when was the last time you had to get somewhere that fast? Now, I shouldn't say that, because first weekend I had my Corvette, I got a speeding ticket doing 182. Good times. Lost my license for 30 days. It was like 2 weeks into that before I knew I lost my license. But yeah, maybe that was a bad a bad example. But yeah, I'm sure it can do that. I'm sure it can do a whole bunch of things. But again, what problem do I have that that is a solution for? Right? They're also useful for rapid trading with automatic clearance. So what? I've never had an issue with clearance. Never had an issue with clearance. Never had an issue with rapid trading either. Never had an issue with that. So again, maybe it can do that, but that's still a problem I don't currently have. So I find that whenever all the things it can do are listed, I think, great, fantastic. I don't have any of these problems. These are not solutions to any problem I currently have. Right? How do you get people to pay in stablecoin? Provide discount for buyers, but how much would you provide before it's easier just to accept cash? Right? On the debate thing, will that still hold true even if you are an expert at CFA? If you tell the LLM to disagree with everything you say, it'll continue to disagree with everything you say, no matter how airtight your arguments are. What if you're held hostage? Again, show of hands. How many people have been held hostage where they've had to transfer a large sum of money instantly? How many people have been held hostage where the person holding you hostage, if they know that you're rich, aren't going to wait 24 hours? No, we got to have it now. We know you're a billionaire, but if we don't have it in the next 10 seconds, you're dead. Who's going to do that? Who's going to kill the billionaire because they can't get their money in 10 seconds? Again, that's a problem neither side has. Right now, there's a great solution for that. It's called 24 hours. Get to know each other. I mean, nah, it's just, I've never been kidnapped and asked for ransom. Never been kidnapped and asked for ransom. Again, another problem I've never had. All right, I think we're pretty much done. Sailor sends money across the universe. Well, I know the universe. Are you sure it's not the planet? The universe at the speed of light. Are you sure it's at the speed of light? Everything travels on fiber. Are you sure? All the time. All the time? All the time, or maybe a couple of times. Are you sure? You're using excessive language. Whenever anyone uses excessive language, there's usually a lot of logical errors in their argument. If you watch one too many of his interviews, okay, let's say that he did that. Who, again, show of hands, needs to send money across the universe at the speed of light? Show of hands. Who has said, if only I could send some money across the universe at the speed of light, I wouldn't have these problems I have today. If only there was a technology that could allow me. Who? Show of hands. Who says, wow, this would really solve a lot of problems I have? I don't know anybody that has that problem. I don't have that problem. I think I live a pretty dynamic life in the terms of where I go and what I do. And I've never come across this problem. I have properties in two different countries. I have staff in two different countries. I have expenses in two different countries. I travel between them all the time. And other than the slowness of the Costa Rican banking system, even if I use stablecoin, I still wouldn't avoid the slowness of the banking system because I still got to get the money out of the coin into the banking system. All of the examples given for this stuff are great technological solutions to problems almost nobody has. 15 years of Bitcoin. Show of hands. How has it found, other than trading it for profit, has it found its way into your life in any insignificant way that has utility? I'd be surprised if out of a crowd of what do we got on here, 143, if one person said, well, I think I use it, I'd be surprised. It's really not got use cases big enough to justify its market cap. Right? Sailor has friends in the Andromeda galaxy. All right. I think we're good. 2 hours in. Well, 2 hours on this one. It's 7:52, 8 o'clock. Doing this for 3 hours. I think we're good. We let's just sum up here so we know what we're doing. The conclusion I think that I would like you all to reach is the existence of AI will heighten the return to expertise. And I think the existence of any credentials behind your name going into a world that is increasingly becoming more and more AI driven and fake experts hanging out behind what they're doing, I think that will have more credibility and more trust. So it matters more now than ever to become not just knowledgeable in your field, but an expert in your field. And that really does mean understanding your field at a metacognitive level and not just in terms of declarative, conceptual, or procedural knowledge, because the models will be killer at those levels, will be killer. There'll be great tools for all of that stuff. You need to elevate yourself on those cognitive skills. And I think we're good, right? Good. I'm going to end here. It is 7:54. We'll see how the market closes. The aftermarket closes at 8 o'clock, and then overnight trading begins. We'll see if there's anything interesting overnight. And then, being that they ordered Tehran emptied, I found so far the best feed is Al Jazeera to see what's going on down there. It's the best so far that I found. If somebody else has another feed, type it in, but I'll be watching that. Maybe I'll watch one more episode. By the way, if you want to watch something really good, it's called, I think, Project Q or Section Q. It's on Netflix. It's out of the UK. Really good. I forget. It's called Project Q or Section Q. I've finished 2 episodes and I'm like full of questions. What's going on? It's really good. Maybe I'll watch an episode of that. Anyways, I'll see you on Discord Wednesday night at 4. That is after the Fed meeting. I'll be doing a live market discussion on Discord Wednesday at 4. Ciao.